Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Since we do have a worldwide audience, I'd like all of you to pull out your phones. And in the bottom right, you should see my QR code. Take out your phone, have your camera hover the QR code, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Allie, if you go ahead and post the little text I suggested in chat, I would encourage you and I want you to have access to this presentation. So I've asked Allie to post in chat the URL for the 60-minute version, but what you really want is the 90-minute version, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But who the heck am I? Well, I'm Jeffrey Ullman. I've been in the IT space for a long time, 30 plus years, 30. Worked at IBM for about 26 years, worked at Oracle for about 6 years, company called Avnet, you may or may not know who they are, for about 2 years, and then most recently at Red Hat for about 2 years. If you do the math, that's more than 30. Lived and worked in South Florida for the 30 plus years. Thought it was time to do something else after 30 years. So I'm currently working at a nonprofit here in South Florida called South Florida Tech Hub. I've known Debbie, who's one of the attendees for a long time. So shout out to Debbie. Thanks for attending. Thank you all for attending. I know you have other things to do, so thank you for that. I have anticipated this to take about an hour, 45 minutes or so presentation and 15 minutes Q&A. If we go long, I'm happy to stay on, but if you have to drop, feel free to drop. I understand. So thank you for that. Let's go forward. So one other thing. I learned this from 2 weeks ago. I was on the, so let me back up. So apologies. I was going to do this presentation last week. For personal issues, I had to reschedule. So sorry if you missed it last week, and thanks for being here this week. If you're watching the replay, by the way, thank you for watching the replay. That's why we recorded. So 2 weeks ago, the speaker said something I thought was great, and I'm going to borrow it, so to speak. Feedback is a gift. So I would ask for all of you to give me feedback. Positive feedback is great, but negative feedback is good as long as it's constructive. Allie and I were talking before we started. The only way you can improve is to get feedback, both positive and constructive feedback on how to improve. So I would encourage you to do that. If there's anything you don't want to ask on an open forum, I'm happy. If you want my opinion, I'm happy for you to follow up, and we can do a one-on-one session. No charge. I think it's important to giving back, and that's why I do this presentation as well. So if something you don't want to ask, feel free to follow up with me, preferably on LinkedIn. One thing I do want to say before we get started in 30 plus years. So let me back up. If you've recently lost your role and you're looking for a new role, if this is your first role in IT, I don't want to sound cynical, but you will eventually get laid off. It's the nature of the industry. So in 30 plus years, I've been laid off more than once. So I can reasonably say I know how you feel. It's never fun. It's never pleasant. We can talk a little about that, but I do understand what it's like to be laid off. And I've used LinkedIn to actually find new roles. So that was kind of the impetus of why I put this presentation together, that I needed to find a new job. I've leveraged LinkedIn. I spent so much time on LinkedIn. I wanted to put it together in a coherent manner so other people could use. And that was my intent in this, is to make it something useful for someone looking for a job. So I have a 60-minute version, which I'm going to go through here, but the version you really want is the 90-minute version. And that link should be in the chat for both this version and the 60-minute version. If for some reason you can't find it or whatever, reach out to me on LinkedIn and I'll share with you the URL. I do want you to have access to this presentation. Okay, so let's try to go forward. So this is what is called a one-pager. I'm not going to go through it because I kind of hit the highlights, but it's analogous to a 30-second elevator pitch. If you're not familiar with what an elevator pitch is, I'm not going to spend the time now to go through it. You can reach out to me. It's something you need to have. And this is something we actually did at IBM, and I thought it was a great idea. So this is analogous to a 30-second elevator pitch. It's your one-pager. The reality is nobody's going to listen or more than 30 seconds briefly about you, and they're not going to read more than one page. Okay, so what are we going to talk about, and what are we not going to talk about that's in my 90-minute version? So I'm a believer in quotes. So in the 90-minute version, I have a lot of relevant quotes. Not going to go through those here. I have some general disclaimers, background, LinkedIn background. I'll go through some of that here. I am going to spend a lot of time on what I mean by can you handle the truth? And for those of you youngsters out there, you may not get the movie reference. I'll explain the movie reference. It is from a famous movie. I am going to talk about applicant tracking systems, ATS, versus leveraging hiring manager, recruiters, and internal contacts. Going to talk about company website job postings, LinkedIn job postings, user-initiated job alerts with and without AI, and LinkedIn Easy Apply. I'm going to spend a lot of time on the fee versus free, the fee versus free or free versus premium. Spoiler alert, I personally think it's worth a premium if you're looking for a role, and we'll talk about that. I'm going to spend a lot of time on connection request, InMails, open profile, and what I call open InMail, open profile, unused feature, which is a mouthful. I'll explain it. I'll talk about, in my opinion, you should turn open to work on. There is different schools of opinion on that. I'll give you mine and have an alternative to the open to work banner. I am going to talk a little about LinkedIn Recruiter Lite, LinkedIn Recruiter Profile Search Order. That'll make sense when I get there. I have some ideas on LinkedIn best practices, LinkedIn thought leaders. All of that's covered in the 90-minute presentation. Not going to go through it here. I do spend a little time in the 90-minute version on Tech Hub. I'm not going to go through that here as well. Questions. Please ask your questions as I go along. Either jump in on the audio, I'm fine with that, or type them in the chat. I don't multitask well, so I can't present and read the chat. So I've asked Allie to look at the chat if you have a question. I'm fine if you want to turn your mic on and just jump in. Quite frankly, I'm not that interesting. I don't want to hear myself talk for a whole hour. So please ask your questions. Again, I'd encourage you to get the 90-minute version because I have about 50 slides in the 90-minute version that I don't go through here that I think you'll find useful. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to mention. So I think one of the other value adds that I provide is it's good news and bad news. It's not really bad news. Good news is LinkedIn is forever changing. New features popping up, things change. I try to monitor that, and every 1 to 3 months, I try to come out with a new version. And that's the date here. So as of the 6th of this month, I did a pretty major update. In about another month or two, I track all the changes. And I go back and revalidate everything that I have in there that's true. So I think that's another value add I provide is that the presentations are pretty current. Okay, this is a TV reference. If you don't get it, Danger Will Robinson. I'm not going to explain it for the sake of time. If you Google it, I see Debbie smiling. I think she gets it. Hopefully you're laughing. I don't want to spend the time here. Google it. You'll get the point. But Danger Will Robinson. This presentation probably violates every rule for good presentations. It may be too long. Many of the slides are too dense, way too many words. I get it, but that's just kind of who I am. And the intent of this is not so much as a great presentation, but for it to be a reference or a repository of information after the presentation. So be warned, Danger Will Robinson. Okay, so you might be thinking, who is this guy? Where does he come off having these opinions? Well, I went back recently. I was laid off. By the way, speaking of not being happy when you're laid off, I was with IBM 26 years, count them, 26. So the day I was laid off, it was not a happy day for me, but it is what it is. I had my pity party for a while, and then I got over it, and then I got another job. So I went back, and I was laid off from IBM in 2011. I've kind of calculated that in the 15 or so years, if my math is right, 14 years, I've probably had 150 screening calls, web interviews, panel interviews with talent acquisition, recruiters, hiring managers. So hopefully after 150 of those, I've learned something, and I tried to put that in this presentation. The other thing I've come to realize there are a lot of great thought leaders in LinkedIn, and I talk about several of them in the 90-minute version, but I haven't really found a thought leader that specifically is laser focused on just how to leverage LinkedIn to find a job. Sometimes I wonder, if they've ever used LinkedIn to actually find a job. So the other thing with this presentation, everything you see here, I've personally done, I've personally validated, I personally use. So there isn't a lot of theory here. It's all tactical reality, I guess. So anyway, LinkedIn, behemoth of an application. 234 million users in the US, 1 billion users with a B globally. It is ever changing. So I have a lot of screenshots here. I currently use my Windows PC. Maybe it's a generational thing. I don't use my phone a lot for LinkedIn unless I don't have access to a PC. So all the screenshots are Windows Chrome based. If you're on a mobile device, the screenshots are going to look different. If you're not aware, about 10 or so years ago, LinkedIn was acquired by Microsoft. They don't really brand it that way, but it's wholly owned by Microsoft. So when I use the term AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, or LinkedIn AI, ML, I'm really talking about Microsoft technology. I am going to assume you already have some knowledge of LinkedIn, and you're using the US version. Non-US versions may look different. I know they do look slightly different in some areas. I'm also assuming you're using the premium version. So all my screenshots are of the premium version, and we'll talk more about that. So what am I not going to focus on? Full disclosure, never been a people manager, never been an executive, not going to be in my career. So this presentation is focused just on individual contributor type roles, not people managers, not executives. Most of it should apply, but it's different when you're an executive versus an individual contributor. The other thing is I'm going to use the term recruiter a lot. When I say recruiter, I mean someone that's an employee of the same company that has the role posted, not third-party recruiters. That's a different business model. So whenever I say recruiter, I mean the person works for the same company that has the job posted. So again, I've been doing this a long time. I've been in the space 30 plus years, primarily, as I mentioned, from a customer-facing sales technical role. I've never had a development role. I've had technical roles, but not development, not DevOps. but I think most of what I'm going to say applies to those roles. But definitely my only experience really has been in the IT industry, technology, I guess, except for the 2.5 years I've been at South Florida Tech. So at the end of the day, this is true for LinkedIn thought leaders. This is true for me. At the end of the day, I'm just sample size of one. You have to do what you feel comfortable with doing or not doing. Okay, so as I mentioned, 234 million users of LinkedIn in the US. And on the right is a breakdown of the population of LinkedIn users by country. It's kind of interesting that India is number 2, and you'll see the other ones there. So this chart or this slide is just some miscellaneous information. Not going to go into branding, which your LinkedIn profile is part of your personal brand, but obviously it is something recruiters are going to look at. And most jobs, at least in the IT space, and this is probably true for all industries, they're going to ask you what your LinkedIn profile is. So you want to make sure it's up to date and current and optimized and all that good stuff. A lot of job applications now let you use your LinkedIn profile, so you don't have to re-enter the data. So it's important on a separate topic to have your profile updated and current and optimized and all that. A couple of other interesting tidbits. One of the things that I have noticed, and I highlight this here and in the 90-minute version, maybe it's obvious, but the increased importance of video on LinkedIn. And I have some blurbs there as well. Okay, so kind of getting to the whole point of the presentation. Where did I get the name of the presentation? Can you handle the truth? Well, hopefully most of you know who Jack Nicholson is. He's still alive, I believe. He's done a lot of great movies. One of his movies was For a Few Good Men. Full disclosure, Tom Cruise is in it. Demi Moore is in it. And when it came out, and maybe today I still have a crush on Demi Moore, so she's in it as well. So it's a great movie. And there's a famous scene towards the end. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen the movie, but Jack Nicholson actually says, you can't handle the truth. So I've turned it around and made it a question and say, can you handle the truth? So what do I mean by that? Well, my opinion is if you're seriously looking for a new job, it's effectively a full-time job. A lot of time and effort goes into looking looking for a job. I think if you think you're just going to apply and get a response, it's not going to happen. Those days are gone. I think you're actually being naive. If there's a role you're interested in, you've got to be proactive. And this is what I go into a large part of my presentation. So I actually have a undergraduate degree in marketing, and I also have an MBA. And when I was in college 100 years ago, one of my professors in one of my marketing classes made a statement. It was a direct marketing campaign class, and in those days, direct marketing meant physical mail before email. He made a statement once that said the typical response rate for a physical mail campaign is 3 to 5%, and he said if you get 3 to 5% in your sales marketing campaign, you're doing really well. So I raised my hand and said, excuse me, are you saying if I mail out 100 pieces of mail and I only get 3 to 5 back, which would be the 3 to 5%, it's considered a success? And he said, yes, absolutely. And that stuck with me because, quite frankly, I think people have an inflated, incorrect view of the responses they're going to get back when they apply for jobs. By the way, I forgot to mention one of the earlier bullets is I think looking for a job is effectively a sales campaign, and you're selling yourself as the thing to be purchased, so to speak, to the hiring manager or the talent acquisition. So if you accept that concept that it's effectively a sales campaign, this is a follow-on kind of data point behind it. So what does that mean? Well, I talk to a lot of people and they say, Jeffrey, I've applied for 100 jobs. I've sent out 100 applications. I've applied to 100 jobs on LinkedIn, and I've only got 3 responses or 4 responses. And I tell them, you're doing great. You are right in the sweet spot. You've got a 3 to 5% response rate. You are doing amazing. And they go, what are you talking about? Because what I did was I kind of turned it around and I rationalize that, well, if 3 to 5% response is considered successful, the reality is you're going to get rejected 95 to 97% of the time. And once I accepted that, I didn't feel so bad when I got rejected, because you're going to get rejected 95 to 97% of the time. But it's okay, because the response rate normally is only 3 to 5%. So to me, it was a whole mindset, a whole changing of view in that, yeah, you're going to get rejected a lot. It's not you. It's just the numbers game. And the reality is 3 to 5% is the response rate. So I did a little research. MailChimp is a company that does a lot of mail campaigns for companies, and they validated. The reality is across multiple industries, it's about 3 to 5%. So I learned that in college 100 years ago, but it's still true as we've migrated from physical mail to email. Okay, so I'm over 29. I see some of you are probably over 29. Ageism is illegal. It exists. We can try to say it doesn't exist, but it does. So I've actually tried to turn it around, and I embrace it. I make a point of my maturity and my experience, and I use that as a selling point. You may differ on that. Some people say, no, don't tell them how old you are and all that. Well, to me, it is what it is. I can't change it. I think it's an asset, so I promote it. And I wish I could say I came up with this, but someone told me once, whenever someone tells you you're overqualified, it means you're qualified. And you can point that out in a nice way. Turning it around, I've had a lot of people looking for entry-level roles that try to focus on their technical skills, and they don't have any because they're right out of college. So I say focus on your life experience, focus on your soft skills. A lot of people, there's a movement of people that have other careers that are not going to go back to college to become developers. They go through a boot camp. It's very common here, at least in South Florida. And those are all examples of I've talked to a lawyer, a nurse, a teacher, and an Israeli drill sergeant. They were trying to compete with people right out of college that had more training because they had a 4-year degree versus a 9-month, let's say, boot camp, but they didn't have the life experience. They didn't have the maturity. They didn't have the soft skills. And I had to kind of remind them, sell that, not the fact you just graduated a boot camp. So it was kind of, again, kind of a mindset change for them. Okay, so why is it a numbers game? Why do the numbers not always work in your favor? So these last 2 bullets, I have no hard data to prove it, but I just know it's true from having been in the industry for 30 years, having had 150 plus interviews and talking to a lot of hiring managers. This may be true for all industries, but I can't really say that. I feel it's true for the IT industry. Once you see a job posted externally, unfortunately, 50% of the time, it's probably more. Once a job has been posted externally, most companies already have an internal candidate in mind. They're just going through the motions of posting the job, of interviewing people. And you might say, well, why would a company do that? Well, a couple of reasons. There may be a legal requirement for them to post a job externally. I've found, quite honestly, some of the recruiters don't even know that the hiring manager has done that. Or there may be an internal HR rule that if they're going to hire someone, they have to post the role externally. They can't just look at internal candidates. So I'm pretty comfortable in that, generally speaking, it's 50% or more. The second bullet, and this shouldn't be a shock, human nature being what it is, hiring managers, recruiters, talent acquisition, or people, they're going to try to find people if they can through a referral of someone that they know or someone that's an employee of the company already. It's kind of a pre-qualification. So I think I've read, and I think it's probably true, 50% of the roles are filled, if not already with an internal candidate, someone that's gotten a referral. And I'll talk about getting internal referrals as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I've said a lot. I can't be that good. Somebody's got to have a question or some feedback. Any questions or thoughts on what I've said so far? Or do you disagree? Nothing? Okay. Allie, you still there? Oh, go ahead, Debbie.
Just because we work with a lot of job seekers too, at all levels of income. Attitude, your mindset is probably the number one thing that you really need to take a good look at. Not only when you're newly unemployed, but even more so for a lot of the people that it seems to drag on for a while or longer than they expect. And just a helpful tip, I just did a post on, what's today? I think I did a post on Tuesday. If you go to my LinkedIn profile to the posting activity, it's gotten some pretty good engagement, and it's specifically how to stay hopeful, during your job search. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
No, I appreciate that.
Your information is great, by the way.
Thank you. Post it in the chat. Post that link in the chat, Debbie, to your link.
Oh, I can do that. Okay.
Another question?
Yeah, I'm Deepak here. I'm from South Florida as well. And I had a question, just a thought. So you're saying that the rejection rate is 95 to 97%, and that most of the jobs, like 50%, are already internally filled and stuff. So are you saying that numbers is, like, as a job seeker, numbers is more important than seeing that, looking at the job and like if is it really 100% good fit, or just applying as many positions as possible? Because that's that every applying to jobs, it's a time-consuming process. So are you saying that which one is a better approach?
Great question. So I'm going to give you a multiple response. That's why I said looking for a job is effectively a full-time job. Takes a lot of time. And thank you for clarifying. What I'm suggesting is you've got to do your own due diligence. You've got to do some self-introspection. You should have some idea of what your skills are. So I'm suggesting only apply for the roles that you're interested in, that you have a reasonable fit as best as you can tell. But you should apply to all of those. Well, not all of them, many, as much as you feel comfortable doing to improve your odds. So no, I'm not suggesting to apply to roles that you're obviously not a fit for. You've got to do your due diligence. But the ones that you think you're a fit for, you can do the job, et cetera, go ahead and apply. One thing I forgot to say, the problem with the 50% are already filled, if they're posted externally, you don't know which 50% it is. So you've got to assume they're all, I assume, and I'll talk a little how you can improve your odds. That's the problem. If you agree with my 50%, that once it's posted externally, if they have an internal candidate, the problem is you don't know which 50%. So that's why it's a numbers game. You've got to apply to all the ones that you think is a reasonably good fit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and my assumption was, yeah, I mean, like if I'm a software developer in a particular technology stack, I'll probably apply that because I have the Java work experience. It's like in the old mindset, like, okay, like I feel like these 3 or 4 openings, I have a very good, the requirements really match my experience, so I apply in that and wait. But you are saying that it's not just focus on these 3, 4, just look for as many as you can with your skill set and which matches your skill set and keep on applying.
That's my view. It can't. Let me give you a counter argument to what I just said. It can be overwhelming. LinkedIn is good at giving you a lot of job alerts, and we'll talk about that. So you've got to find a happy balance, and we'll talk a little more about that. But does that help answer? And who asked that question? I didn't get your name.
Deepak here?
Okay, does that help?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, good question. So applicant tracking systems, ATS. We could probably spend a whole presentation on this. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. In the 90-minute version, I've got some links to some really good articles. So this is my view. Other people may have other views. You do need to read the job postings in excruciating detail because you can pick up keywords. Do try to embed those keywords in unique resumes for specific roles. In my opinion, and I've talked to a lot of people, I've seen people try to rewrite their whole resume for a particular role. Maybe it's easier now with ChatGPT, but before that, I saw a lot of people spending a lot of time rewriting their resume to try to match a specific role. I personally don't think it's a good use of your time. Maybe it's changed with ChatGPT because you're never going to be smart enough to compete, in my opinion, with the ATS. So don't even spend a lot of time on it. I think you're better served, and maybe I'm not objective, is trying to follow my methodology here. I'll let you decide that when we get through it. Okay, so one of the other bullet points I mentioned about internal leveraging LinkedIn to find other internal contacts if you don't already have one. Just for a point of reference, you should ultimately be trying to get to the hiring manager. If you can't find the hiring manager first, the recruiter is second. And this varies a lot by companies, but a lot of companies use the title talent acquisition or talent, which may be a more, let's say, entry-level role before the recruiter. It's not true for all companies, it varies. But generally, especially in the larger companies, you can have hiring managers, recruiters, and talent acquisition. If you can get right to the hiring manager, that's okay too, and I'll talk about that. So some of my thought processes are, do you already have a connection at the company you're interested in? Reach out to them. Does your connection have another connection? Reach out to them. Just go ahead and ask them, for this particular role, do you know or can you find out who the hiring manager, recruiter, or talent acquisition person is? If you think asking for the hiring manager is a little too aggressive, just ask them for who the recruiter is. I don't think it's too aggressive, but some people have told me they're uncomfortable. That's okay. Just ask them for who the recruiter is. Here's another tip. Go into LinkedIn and pull out the title of the role you're interested in and search for employees in that company that have the same role and ask them, can you go ahead and tell me who the hiring manager is for this role? I've had a lot of people say, Jeffrey, I can't reach out to people I've never met, I don't know, and just ask them for who the hiring manager is. Well, maybe it's because I have a sales background. Yes, you can. You will be surprised, and I am still surprised, people that I've never met that don't know me, when I just ask who the hiring manager is, they look it up and tell me right out of the gate, and I'm done. Then I reach out to the hiring manager. You are golden if you can get the hiring manager's name and email. The other thing, a lot of companies have internal referral programs. If you're comfortable asking, and I've asked, if you're comfortable, refer me internally before I apply, and you can get the referral. The other thing is, based on the job title, look up and see if you can find who the hiring manager is. Search for that person in LinkedIn and just ask them if they're the hiring manager. And if they say no, well, then can you tell me the name and the email of who the hiring manager is? Same thing. If you aren't comfortable searching for the hiring manager, try to look up recruiters and ask them if they're the recruiters for the role. The other thing is, if you spend enough time on LinkedIn, sometimes hiring managers and recruiters will post on LinkedIn roles even before they're posted externally. And if they do that, to me, that means they're more interested in an external candidate because they've actually posted them before they've posted them externally. Okay. So what are some other ways you can improve or increase your response rate? So for this presentation, I use Cisco as an example. Some things you might not be aware of, if you go to the company page in LinkedIn, they will tell you who are the recent hires. A lot of times it's higher level execs, but that's okay. You can say, hi, I see you were just promoted to so-and-so, you're a new hire. I'm looking to be considered for this role. Can you tell me who the hiring manager is in their email? Again, you've got nothing to lose. The other thing you can do, and you might not be aware of this, you can go in under the company profile and search by geography. So for Cisco, I went in and searched for Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and there are 450 people that work for Cisco. So it's a little more personal. You could reach out to them and say, hey, we're both based in South Florida. I'm interested in this role. Maybe if you don't want to ask them who the hiring manager is, can we talk on Zoom for 15 minutes? Can I buy you a cup of coffee? Just to have an informal conversation about the company. The other thing you can try moving over to the top right is who went to the same college as you that work for that company. LinkedIn will let you search that as well. So that you can say, hey, I went to Georgia State University in Atlanta, and the school mascot was the Panthers. So, you can say, go Panthers. I thought Georgia State University was great. I see you're a graduate. Can you tell me who the hiring manager is of this company or the recruiter? The other thing I mentioned is if you look at the LinkedIn feed for that company, sometimes they'll post, or hiring managers or recruiters will post before it gets posted externally. And if all else fails, you can try just reaching out an email. In the 90-minute version, I've got some tools to help you determine who the email is. Okay. I guess, again, before I move on, again, I've said a lot. Any thoughts, questions, comments on what I've said so far? Does it make sense? Okay. Any questions, Allie, in the chat?
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to keep going. So let's shift gears. So a lot of different ways companies can post jobs. They can post them on their website, and that's very common, obviously. A lot of companies post them on LinkedIn. What generally is true, most of the larger companies only post a subset of their roles on LinkedIn because they have way too many to post them all on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not a not-for-profit business. They're a for-profit company. So they charge companies for every job posting. So my thought was, okay, 50% of the roles, if they're going to post them either on their website or LinkedIn, they've already got maybe a candidate. But if they're paying to post it on LinkedIn, maybe they are seriously looking for an external candidate. So to me, it's anecdotal, but you might have a better shot at a role that's posted on LinkedIn than on the company website because they had to pay for it. The thing I've also learned, and this has actually gotten worse with AI, because a lot of companies are using AI to write job descriptions. I don't have it in this one, but in the 90-minute version, I have some examples of clearly they let an AI bot write a job description. And it's obviously wrong, but the AI bot can't tell because it's not a human being. So again, you've got to read the job descriptions in detail. Oftentimes, the title, geography of the role may not match the job description. Oftentimes, what's on LinkedIn doesn't entirely match what's on the website. A lot of roles, not a lot, but several roles in the IT space may have similar titles that vary across companies. I had a job at Red Hat as a customer success executive, but the same job can be customer success manager, customer success specialist. So you might have to search multiple ways. The nice thing about LinkedIn, unlike companies' job posting, not all the time, but oftentimes in the posting, they'll tell you who the hiring manager is or who the recruiter is. My God, they just saved you hours of work. If you're interested in that role, you know who to reach out to. Boom. I can't imagine a better way to, pursue a role. All right. So, okay, job alerts. What's a job alert? Well, it's an automated way to search for roles on LinkedIn. To me, it's more of an art than a science. Someone gave me a good example that if you use the keyword renewable energy versus clean energy, to me, that's kind of the same thing. You'll get different results. So it's more of an art than a science. So in the top right, you'll see some of the examples that I used when I was looking for a role. So you want to use industry keywords, common acronyms. Don't forget to do a geographic search as well. And the weird thing about LinkedIn, if you look on the top right, I had a geographic search for Miami, Fort Lauderdale. I don't know why, but it shows up as two little dots. So if you don't pay attention in the search, I think it will say Miami, Fort Lauderdale, but you'll also get these two little dots like you see here. So you want to slice and dice it, keywords, geography as well. One of the other things I read somewhere that LinkedIn, there's this concept that the Census Bureau uses called Metropolitan Statistical Area, MSA. And it does not always line up with counties, does not always line up with cities. So I've read where it's better to use the largest MSA you can based for the geography where you live. South Florida is kind of interesting because there are a lot of different cities, and you might know where the city is based on the county. So in LinkedIn, they have my quote unquote Miami, Fort Lauderdale, which is really encompassing all of South Florida. So just be aware of that, having a geographic search as well. The other thing is, again, with the advent of AI, LinkedIn is starting to roll out that you can still use keywords, but if you want to leverage AI to describe a role, and it will theoretically go find the roles, that's being rolled out. And I have a link to a good post on what that process is. Maybe I'm old school, but I kind of still think right now keyword approach is the best approach, but you can do both. I'm not going to spend time on what this is, but I saw this post, which is kind of an interesting way to go in and look for jobs, not using keywords. I'll let you take a look at it. Very interesting. I'd suggest you take a look at it. Okay. The other thing you've probably seen is you can apply for a job through LinkedIn, and typically it takes you back to the company's website, but they also have this thing called Easy Apply, where you just click on Easy Apply. I would go ahead and apply every possible which way for the role. Easy Apply if there's a full application on the website. I kind of think Easy Apply goes into a black hole and no one looks at it. I say easy apply, easy go. I have no data behind that, but I would apply every which way. But you will see easy applies. Okay, let's shift gears. Is it worth paying for a LinkedIn premium profile? Right now, I have a premium career. I think if you're looking for a job, it's worth it, and I'll tell you why. There are a lot of other different profiles, and I believe those are the current premium profiles that you see there. Premium business, sales navigator, recruiter light, LinkedIn learning, although LinkedIn learning is free to some degree, and then company pages. Sales navigator, whoops, we had sales navigator at Oracle and Red Hat. It's kind of an enterprise version of LinkedIn. You can do a lot more different kind of searches. It's really for people doing heavy duty prospecting. Anyway, on the right side of the screen, Brenda Miller is one of the LinkedIn thought leaders that I follow. She had a good video on, is it worth upgrading to LinkedIn Premium? To me, it is, but I would watch the video as well. Okay, why is it worth it in your opinion? Well, first of all, how much does it cost? At least in the US, the premium career is about $45 if you do it month to month. I've read where it's recently gone up. I was paying $45 a month, and then I poked around and I realized if I paid for a year up front, it cut it in half. So if you can afford it, you do have to pay a whole year up front, but it reduces the monthly amount to about half of what you're paying if you go month to month. My opinion is it's worth premium. Why is that? Well, we're all afraid that Skynet's going to take control and kill us eventually. Why not let the AI ML work for you? There's a lot of over time, once Microsoft acquired them, and you can see it now, a lot more AI ML is coming to LinkedIn. Some of it's available in the free, but as a for-profit business, if you're going to leverage it, you really need a premium profile. So I'm not going to go through all of the different things, but I took some screenshots from my profile of some of the previous premium things you get that are worthwhile. For example, bottom left, jobs where you're a top applicant. One of the things that I have found is once you're on LinkedIn for a period of time and the algorithm has gotten to know you by what jobs do you look at? What jobs have you applied for? What things do you like? What do you comment on? It does a pretty good job of where you say jobs where you're a top applicant. It does a pretty good job now of exposing jobs for me that I'm interested in, many that don't show up in my job alerts. So that's another reason why I think it's worth premium. This is another example of why you might want to pay for premium. There's some private groups you can only join if you're a premium user. A lot of different things. We could spend another half hour just on premium versus free. The net of it is, if you're looking for a job, I think it's an investment in yourself. It may be a tax deductible expense. I'm not an accountant. It's not cheap, but I think it's worth it. The other nice thing is they've started to roll out, again, maybe this is generational, but sometimes I like talking to a live human being on the phone. Many of you youngsters out there may be fine just talking to a bot. Bots are great, but sometimes I want a live human being. But they have started to roll out phone support for premium users. Okay. The other thing, and we'll spend a little, did I skip ahead? I just realized I talk about connection requests and I don't explain what they are. So connection requests are pretty simple. It's a request to connect with someone you're not connected with on LinkedIn. But there's the difference in the free versus the premium. And this is relatively new. And these are some of the differences, 300 characters versus 200 characters, virtually unlimited. By the way, LinkedIn tries to control bots. So it's not unlimited. You can't have a bot and have it generate 10,000 connection requests because they'll track you down and break your knees. No, they won't. They'll put you in LinkedIn jail. So, I mean, be reasonable about it. So it's virtually unlimited. I don't know what the limit is, but it's not unlimited. But the free one is only 10, which is not very much. So the other thing, keep in mind when I get to InMails, users cannot turn off receiving connection requests. They can ignore it, but they can't turn off receiving them. So just like I mentioned before, here are some examples of, I've had a couple people say, Jeffrey, what do I say? I say, get right to the point because you've only got 300 characters. Hello, we've not met. You don't know me. Please accept this as an intro. I've applied for this job. Oh, you can use tiny URL to save on characters. I'm a great fit for the role. Would you be able to ask me? Would you be able to tell me the name and the email, the hiring manager and the recruiter? Again, you're going to get rejected 95 to 97% of the time, but you will be pleasantly surprised of the people you've never met, you don't know, that will tell you who the hiring manager is. Okay. This is probably the most complicated part of this presentation, but it's also the thing that I feel that is the least well understood or documented in LinkedIn. So we talked about connection requests. You've got a thing called an InMail. By the way, I don't know if that's a good name, but that's what it's called. An InMail allows you to send a message to a LinkedIn user that you're not connected with, but it's only open to premium users. Again, another reason to have premium. You have more characters, either the 200 or the 300. Actually, that should be 300. I'm sorry. You have in an InMail, you've got a subject line and a body. In a connection request, you don't have a subject line. So you've got a lot more characters you can put in an InMail. The thing with InMails is based on your premium subscription level, you only get a certain number every month. So with Premium Career, which is what I have, it's only 5 every month. That is not a lot. So keep that in mind. For those of you that have been around, there was a time, I'm making a joke here. Right now, when you have a cell phone plan, you have unlimited minutes for long distance calls. There was a time where you didn't have unlimited. You have maybe 300 minutes of long distance. And if you're very careful and you didn't use them all, they roll over every month. So next month, you get 600 minutes. So if you don't use all your InMail credits, and they do call them credits, in 1 month, it will roll over. The other thing that would confuse me for the longest time, when you're getting new InMails, because you've used up the 5, it does not fall on the first day of each month. It falls on your billing cycle. So I was very confused for a long time because my billing cycle is like the 11th of every month, not the first. You can go in your profile and it'll tell you when your billing cycle is. So if you're looking for your next 5 InMails, wait till your billing cycle is up. It doesn't show up on the first of the month. The thing about InMails is you can go in and turn off receiving InMails. I think that's a bad idea for job seekers, and I'll tell you why. What's interesting, there's this little known or unused feature that relates to InMails, and I hate the name, but this is what LinkedIn calls it. It's called Open Profile, and I have a screenshot for it. So if your Open Profile is set to open, let me rephrase that. If the person that you want to send an InMail message to, if their Open Profile is open, then you can send them an InMail, and it does not reduce the number of your InMail credits. I'll explain why that's a very powerful thing. If their Open Profile is closed and you want to send them an InMail, then it will use an InMail credit, or you can send them a connection request. I don't know if I've explained that very well. It is a little complicated. I think the names are confusing. So if anybody has a question, jump in. But you might be thinking, okay, well, before we get to how do you tell if someone's Open Profile is open, I thought this was very interesting. I don't know where LinkedIn gets this data, but it kind of makes sense anecdotally. I've seen where LinkedIn will tell you that an InMail is 4.6 times more effective than an email. So if you're trying to reach, and by the way, I think I forgot to say, most of these screenshots are hot links. So if you want to see the article behind them, just click on the screenshot. It kind of makes sense if you think about it, because we all get so much spam, we just delete it. And yes, InMails can be used for spam, and it is, but fortunately, it's not as bad as email spam. So LinkedIn claims if you're trying to reach a hiring manager or recruiter, an InMail is going to be 4.6 more times effective than just an email. I don't know where they got that data from. I'm trying to dig around and get it, but you'll see where I got those references. Okay, you might be saying, Jeffrey, I think I know what you're talking about, although I might be confused. I've got ahead of myself again. Okay, back to being able to send only a limited number of connection requests. There is a limited number of InMails, even if you get them sent free per month. I haven't been able to find it, but I actually exceeded it 1 month. I think it's around 100. I have no hard data, but from my personal experience, I think it's around 100. And it kind of makes sense. LinkedIn doesn't want these bots either sending millions and millions of connection requests or sending millions and millions of InMails. So 1 month when I was looking for a job, I wasn't able to send free InMail credits. And I poked around and I went to support, and they said, well, it's because you've exceeded your allotment for the month. And I said, what is it? They said, well, it's 100. So actually, they didn't say that in the chat, or I would have copied it. But I went back and counted how many I did and figured out it was about 100. So just keep that in mind. But here's another thought leader I follow, Donna Sadula, who wrote a nice post on Open Profile. I would go ahead and read that. But you're probably saying, Jeffrey, how in the world would I know if someone's Open Profile is open so that I could send them an InMail, assuming they're a hiring manager or a recruiter? Well, I'm going to show you because it is possible. So I've never connected with Brian Ryder. You can look him up on LinkedIn. So that's why the connect button is blue, because we're not connected. He's got a little gold icon there, so I know he's a premium user. If I collect on message, what pops up on the right is his InMail dialog box. And you can see, okay, you want to send Brian a message, you've got to use one of your 4 InMail credits. So I've got to decide, is he worth, or back to the other question, is this role worth me using up one of my InMail credits? You've just got to decide that. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Hopefully, the hiring manager or recruiter has set their Open Profile to open. And this is what it looks like. Scott Aaron, we're not connected. He's a premium user. I go to send him a message, and you'll see on the top right, it says free message. And meaning I don't have to use one of my InMail credits. And if you click on the Y, it'll say that's because Brian has set his open profile to open. And so you can look before you send him the message as to whether you want to use the InMail credit. So what I used to do is every recruiter or every hiring manager that I wanted to reach out to, since I only had 5 a month or maybe more if they carried over, I would search in LinkedIn and try to find the hiring manager, try to find the recruiter, try to find someone with the same title, and then I could see if I could send them a free InMail message and not use the 5 I had allotted to me. This could be very powerful. I haven't really seen it documented that well. Oh, whoops. Hopefully I've explained it. But it's a very powerful feature. Okay. Do you still, Allie, I clicked on a link. Do you still see my presentation?
Yes. The
Okay.
presentation.
Yeah. So someone said, Jeffrey, again, I don't know what to say. Tell me what to say. I've got 1,900 characters in an InMail. Okay. Well, you can say more now. Hello, we've just met. You don't know me. Please take this as an introduction. I've applied for this role. I understand you're the hiring manager. I understand you're the recruiter. I'm a great fit, blah, blah, blah. Would you be able to advise some good days and times that you're able to discuss the role? Blah, blah, blah. Thank you. Short, sweet, right to the point. Again, 95, 97% of the hiring managers and recruiters are going to ignore you, just like the response, I mentioned before. But you will get about 3 to 5% that go, yeah, sure, I'm happy to talk to you. Okay. Danger Will Robinson is back. I've seen some other LinkedIn thought leaders who will remain nameless, have said that because they don't like getting InMails, because you will get some spam InMails because they're not looking for a job. So they don't really have a need for people to reach out to them because they're not hiring managers or they're not looking for a job. That will turn off their open profile. I would suggest to you, if you're looking for a job, you don't want to turn it off. You want to leave it open, because if you turn it off, that means a recruiter or hiring manager is going to have to send you a connection request first to talk to you. Why not make it easy for them to reach out to you and connect to you? And I've had recruiters reach out to me because my open profile is set to open and we're not connected. Said, hey, Jeffrey, I think you might be a fit for this role, et cetera, et cetera. I've gotten spam too. It's just one of the things. Okay. This is why you need to have your profile current, up to date. Unless this has changed, I believe the LinkedIn recruiter search order is first. It goes to your headline. I think it's called headline under your name. And then it goes to your about section. You want to have the right keywords and you want to have the right data there. I know this is partially true because 2 jobs ago, I was looking for an IoT kind of related job. That's Internet of Things, if you're not familiar with that. And I had 1 or 2 recruiters reach out to me, say, hey, I think you might be a fit for this role. And I said, I'm just curious. And by the way, every recruiter that's ever reached out to me, I say, I'm curious, what prompted you to reach out to me in my profile? And they said, oh, well, this is an IoT role. I was in LinkedIn Recruiter. I used IoT as a search argument, and your profile was one of the top 5 that popped up. So just be aware of that. Okay, open to work. Open to work is that green banner you see under your picture. It's pretty self-explanatory. It means you're open to work. There is 2 schools of thought. Some people say, and you can adjust it so that it's public on the top right for all LinkedIn users, or you can adjust it for theoretically for only people that have a recruiter profile that will see it. I chose to have it open for all LinkedIn members. My view was, if I'm looking for a job, why not tell all of LinkedIn I'm looking for a job? Some other LinkedIn thought leaders will say, well, maybe it means you're desperate. It doesn't look good. I don't know. It seems to me that if you're looking for a job, why not post it on LinkedIn? But I understand that other view. This article, Executive Career Brand, that's a good article. And just as it says, should I use open to work on LinkedIn? If you don't want to have it say open to work, one of the things Donna Sadula does, she has a little utility, and there are other utilities to do this. You can put your own text in that frame around your picture. Okay, I am done. Thank you. Go get the 90-minute presentation because I think there's a lot more info.